I bought the house for cash after the bank foreclosed. It's a 1912 Craftsman on a half-acre lot that nobody wanted. Sagging porch, vines in the gutters, a basement hatch welded shut. I'm a finished carpenter. I like bones I can mend. The first month I only worked days, ripping out drywall that smelled like wet dog and pennies. Every night I left at sunset because the fuse box still arcs and I hadn't run new lines yet. On the third Friday I decided to stay over. Air mattress, camping lantern, six-pack. I was brushing my teeth when I heard a thump under the floor, like someone tipped a dresser. I froze, spit foam on the subfloor and listened. Nothing. Old wood expands, I told myself, and went to bed. At 3:07 a.m. something scratched, slow and deliberate, directly beneath the air mattress. Not mice skitter. This was a 4-nail drag, the way you'd pull a chalk line. I rolled off, shone the lantern through the cracks, blackness. Dust, no movement. I opened the hatch to the crawlspace anyway. The smell that came out was sweet rot, like pears left in a gym bag. I took one step down the ladder and the lantern flickered. When the light steadied, I saw a child's marble. Between my boots, clear, glass with a white swirl, sitting on bare dirt that hadn't seen footprints in decades. I don't own marbles. I left it there, sealed the hatch with a sheet of plywood and 60-penny nails, drove to the motel and still heard that scratch in my head for hours. Next morning I convinced myself the marble rolled downhill from some kid's vent. I bought a cheap trail cam, zip-tied it to a floor joist, and set it for night vision and 3-minute clips. I also poured a 15-pound bag of quick-reti across the hatch seam. Petty, but it let me sleep. Footage for the first 2 nights showed only drifting dust and the occasional spider. On the third night the clip began normally. Then the audio spiked with a wet click, like a tongue leaving the roof of a mouth. The infrared flared and every joist cast 2 shadows, which is impossible with one light source. At 02:59, the lens tilted upward. Something pushed the camera from below, then black. When I pulled the SD card, it was ice cold and smelled faintly of copper. I called my buddy Devin to come look. He's an HVAC guy who doesn't spook easy. We cut the hatch open together. The concrete was cracked straight down the middle, as if something rose up and dropped it back in place. Devin shimmied in with a headlamp, measured the clearance 18 inches at center. Not enough room to stand, plenty to crawl. He got 10 feet before he stopped. "What's up?" I asked. He didn't answer, just backed out fast, eyes wide, holding a second marble. This one cobalt blue with a red helix inside. "I'm not staying here," he said, and left without billing me. That was the first day I wondered if the house wasn't empty when I bought it. I poured fresh concrete again, 2 inches thick, and framed a new hatch out of 2x6s lag-bolted into the rim joist. While the mix cured, I slept in the truck, parked in the driveway with the doors locked and the radio on low. Every hour I'd wake to the same dream. Something small and pale pressing its face against the windshield, leaving a perfect oval of condensation that shrank inward, as if the glass were being sucked out. On the 4th morning, the concrete looked older than it should. Hairline cracks, dark patches like oil had seeped up from the soil. I told myself the mix was bad, went inside, and tried to stay busy sanding the maple floors upstairs. The belt sander kept stalling. I'd lift it and find no obstruction, plug it back in, and stall again. Third time I knelt to check the belt and saw a marble rolling toward me across the bare wood amber, with what looked like a black pupil at its core. It stopped against my knee. I hadn't brought marbles into the house. I hadn't even bought breakfast. I hurled it out the back window, heard it ping off the neighbor's abandoned shed, and went back to work. The sander started on the first pull. That night I set the trail cam again, this time wedged into the attic access so it looked down the hallway toward the basement door. 2:57. The clip begins with normal infrared glow. At 03R, the basement door opens 2 inches, stops. No hand, no draft, just the knob turning and the hinges swinging. A minute later, the marbles start. One at a time, they roll out of the darkness, click across the oak, and array themselves in a perfect equilateral triangle. Amber, cobalt, clear, exactly where my air mattress had been. The camera's microphone records a sound like breathing through a wet straw. Then the triangle spins, all 3 marbles rotating as if a child were twisting them with invisible fingers. The clip ends when the lens fogs over from the inside. I pulled the card, bagged it, and drove to the county records office. The clerk found the original blueprints. The house had no crawl space in 1912. The foundation was poured solid slab. The basement was added in 1974 by owner Elmer Dodd, who filed for a single permit, excavation, 4-foot height, vapor barrier, then canceled the inspection and never closed the file. Dodd vanished the same winter. Mail piled up, milk on the porch frozen solid. I asked if there were children in the house. The clerk slid a photocopied census across the counter. Elmer, wife Ruth, twin boys age 7, both listed missing presumed. I went back at dusk, parked, and sat with the headlights on the hatch. At 3:07 exactly, the new concrete cracked audibly. A fissure zigzagged like lightning, and the slab lifted half an inch, held, then settled back. The lag bolts hadn't moved. The wood wasn't splintered. The concrete itself had flexed. I finally did what I should have done weeks earlier. I called the cops. 2 deputies arrived, flashlights and coffee, humoring the city guy who bought the spooky house. I showed them the clip on my laptop. Their smirks faded when the marbles spun. Deputy Morris descended first, shotgun slung, body cam live. For 90 seconds, the feed showed only dirt and spider webs. Then his voice crackled. "There's a door down here." I felt my stomach fold in half. "Like a crawlspace access?" I asked. "No," he said. "Like a bedroom door, 6-panel pine, hinged the wrong way. And it's warm." The radio hissed, cut to static. We yanked the hatch. Morris was gone, shotgun left on the dirt, barrel still warm. His body cam lay face up, lens cracked. Last frame a close-up of amber marble rolling toward the lens. The other deputy called it in. By sunrise, the house was cordoned off. Search dogs circling, finding nothing but 3 fresh marbles lined up on the cruiser's hood. Amber. Cobalt clear, glistening with dew. They asked me to leave for the night. I refused. I boarded every window, nailed the front door shut from inside, and slept in the hallway with the trail cam running. I didn't dream. I didn't wake. At 07 Sierra, the camera showed me still lying there, but the timestamp burned 03:07 beneath, looping 30 seconds of me breathing in, breathing out, while marbles clicked across the floor like slow rain. When I opened my eyes, the hallway was empty, but the boards were polished clean. Nail holes gone, varnish fresh. The trail cam sat on its side, lens ground flat, SD card snapped in half. My phone showed 72 missed calls, all from my own number, time-stamped between 03:07 and 03:08. I smelled wet paint, though I hadn't bought any in months. The basement hatch stood open, concrete slab folded back like a trapdoor, edges rounded as if it had never been poured. I climbed down without a flashlight. The darkness below was reddish warm, pulsing slightly like a throat. Dirt steps descended in perfect spirals, walls glossy and ribbed. No marbles, no Deputy Morris. Only the sound of someone humming a lullaby I remembered my mother singing off-key. At the bottom was the 6-panel pine door, now ajar, light spilling out the width of a marble. I pushed it wide. Inside was my living room, exact replica, down to the coffee ring on the maple bench, except every window looked onto black soil instead of yard. The air smelled of sawdust and pennies. On the couch sat a boy in 1940s suspenders, skin pale as drywall, holding 3 marbles between slender fingers. His eyes were the same amber swirl. "You fixed the floor," he said, voice layered, like a choir speaking through one throat. Behind him, a second boy stepped out of the wall itself, cobalt eyes glowing. Both opened their mouths. Inside were endless spirals of dirt and spinning marbles. I felt my knees buckle, not from fear but from weight, as if gravity had tripled. They extended their hands, palms up, waiting. I understood the choice: take the marbles, stay as caretaker, keep the house standing, or refuse and become the next thing the floor remembers. I thought of Devon, of Morris, of the concrete that never stayed cracked. I reached out, not to accept, but to flip the coffee table, my table, into the false window. Glass didn't break. Soil poured in, thick and wet, burying their ankles. The boys' faces flickered, angry, then curious, as if no one had ever touched their things. I ran, clawing up the spiral, soil chasing, heat rising. Behind me, the lullaby twisted into a scream of splintering wood. I burst through the hatch into dawn light. But the house was gone. Only foundation outlines remained, filled with marbles glinting like dew. My truck sat exactly where I'd parked, engine running. Driver door open, keys swinging. I jumped in, floored it, didn't look back until the gaslight blinked. 50 miles later, I stopped at a diner, hand shaking too hard to hold coffee. A local paper lay on the counter. Historic craftsman burns in night fire. No trace of owner. The photo showed ashes, yet I could see, in the grayscale rubble, 3 perfect circles catching the flash. Amber, cobalt, clear. I drove farther, crossed 2 states, sold the truck, changed my name, rented a studio that sits on a slab. No crawlspace, no attic, no history. Every night at 03:07 I wake to the sound of marbles rolling across laminate, though the floor is bare. I never find them, but the scent of wet pears lingers until sunrise. Last week I opened the mail. A single envelope. No return postmarked from my old county. Inside were 3 glass spheres nested in newspaper. Amber, cobalt, clear. I buried them in separate lots under concrete parking decks. Poured fresh slabs, walked away whistling. Tonight the humming starts again beneath the floor, softer, patient. I keep no marbles, no tools. No notebooks, only a gallon of gasoline and a book of matches taped beneath the bed. If you ever buy a cheap old house and find a marble where it shouldn't be, don't pick it up. Close the hatch, sell the deed, burn the map. Some foundations aren't meant to hold memories. Some tenants don't leave until the house forgets you, or until you forget yourself. I've said their names too many times already. The floorboards here are starting to flex. The clock hits a 3:06. I strike the first match, watch sulfur bloom, and whisper the only goodbye. I have left, the sound of glass rolling away into silence. I poured the last bag of concrete at sunset, troweled it smooth, and nailed the hatch shut with 12 spikes. The house felt lighter, like a lung that had finally exhaled. I slept on the truck seat. Engine off, windows cracked. At 03:07 the cricket stopped. I heard the slab crack once, sharp as a rifle, then nothing. Morning showed no fissure, no marbles, only my own footprints in the dust. I sold the place that afternoon to a flipper who never asked why the price was half of half. He texted 6 weeks later, "Mind if we finish the basement?" I didn't answer. 2 nights after that my phone rang. His number, no voice, just the slow roll of glass across wood. I blocked him, changed my SIM, moved west until the land turned desert and the houses sat on slabs of solid stone. I work framing condos now. No crawl spaces, no history, no dreams. But every 03:07 I wake to the scent of wet pears and the faint click of marbles I no longer own, rolling through the walls I never built, looking for the door I left open. I keep a matchbook under my pillow and a vow in my throat. If the floor ever feels soft again, I'll burn the map. Not the house. Erase the address from my tongue, forget the boys. The amber, the cobalt, the clear. The clock hits 03:06. I strike the first match, watch sulfur bloom, and whisper the only goodbye. I have left. The sound of glass rolling away into silence I refuse to follow.